Rev up your engines!
Well, the Ford Bronco Sport Assembly Plant in Mexico was named the best plant in North America. So you think, ooh, I'm worried about this quality control in Mexico? Well, look what it's been named. The best assembly plant in North America. There's only one problem. This President's Quality Award is an award that is awarded internally by Ford Motor Company. Of course, they're going to throw PR out that that's their best plant. Because everybody's saying, do I really want stuff made in Mexico, right? So Ford decides to say, that's the best plant in North America. They should put a little asterisk amongst Ford plants as advertised by Ford Motor Company itself. When I read this, I couldn't help but laugh. One of the big metrics for deciding it was, you're not going to believe this. They call it, and I quote, the last metric, cost per unit, concerns the manufacturing costs incurred. Cost per vehicle. Well, of course, the cost per vehicle is going to be less in Mexico. They pay them less. It's cheaper to make cars down there. This has to be the most absurd award I've ever heard of in my life. You might as well as ask all the inmates of all the prisons whether they're guilty, and almost all of them are going to say, no, I was framed. I'm not guilty. I don't belong in prison. I mean, come on now. It's like the pot calling the kettle black. Hey, everything's burned here. I'm giving an award for saying the best manufacturing plant is our plant in Mexico, that they gave it to themselves, and one of the big deals about it is it costs less to make them down there. I don't think I'd put much stock in that President's Award myself. Ford Man 8011 says, what do you think about the new Toyota Tundra with its plastic bed and coil spring rear suspension? I don't even classify as a truck anymore. It's a sports utility vehicle. I am not happy with the stuff they did. I do not like the V6 turbo engines, and now they're having a problem with the wastegates on the turbo systems on them, and plastic stuff. Now, coil spring rear, they just ride better, and that's what a lot of people want. Take the new Ford Maverick, the little pickup truck. If you get all-wheel drive one, the rear suspension is independent like that, but all the other ones are just a solid live axle on the back. Now, solid live axles are strong. Guys want big trucks towing, love those things, but they don't ride that well. That depends on what you want. I wouldn't really dismiss it as a truck because it's got coil springs in the back, but I would if it doesn't have enough power and if the engines don't hold up. And I mean, do you really want a plastic bed? You throw a bunch of heavy stuff, what's going to happen? It's going to crack. That's why they put steel in it in the first place, so they don't crack. Rishi Patel says, my sister just bought a 2022 Acura ILX with a Honda 2-liter turbo engine, 8-speed tranny. Anything she watch out for? She's definitely an aggressive driver. All right, she's an aggressive driver. Numero uno, tell her she got to change the engine oil every 5,000 miles if she wants it to last. I would change the transmission fluid every 30,000 miles. The weakest part of all Hondas are their automatic transmissions. Now, their engineers make them better than they used to. Would not chance it. I would change the tranny fluid every 30,000 miles. It's easy to just drain whatever comes out, put new fluid in, the same amount, buy the fluid at Honda so you're using the same one. That's the main thing, because you can easily burn out the transmissions. That's the weakest part. Tim C. says, Scotty, I picked up an 04 Scion XB with 170,000 miles. Anything I should worry about? Well, do a compression check of the engine, wet and dry. See if the piston rings are worn. A lot of those had bad piston rings. And of course, if it's an automatic, you'd want to change the fluid and filter in the transmission just to make sure. And with that mileage and being 18 years old, check all the hoses and belts for cracks and replace them. They're well-made vehicles, but you want to make sure that it's not an oil burner. Now, if it is, just keep adding oil. Don't rebuild the engine. That costs too much money. You probably didn't pay all that much for it anyway. Don't waste your time trying to rebuild the engine. That costs thousands and thousands of dollars. It's not worth it if it does burn a little bit of oil. Blogging Trucker says, can I use AT205 reseal if I already use bar stop leak? No, I would never ever mix two different kinds of stop leak. You would have no idea what kind of interaction goes on. For example, radiator sealers, some of them work quite well. And the old ones had a mixture of sodium silicate that would be like liquid glass, and it would seal the leaks on the old-fashioned green antifreeze. But with the modern antifreeze, that's organic acid instead of inorganic acid, especially the Asian one that's either pink or yellow. They can be various colors just to dye. If you put sodium silicate in that stuff, it'll clog it up and make this messy gunk that'll destroy your car. So I never advise mixing any kind of sealer. Who knows what kind of reaction it'll have now or maybe a year down the line after it heats up and mixes around. No, don't ever mix different kinds of sealers. And in that vein also, let's say you got a radiator leak, your old car, you don't want to buy a radiator. Do not put stop leak in a cooling system that's all dirty and corroded. If you see it's leaking but it's all dirty, flush it out first. Then put a new coolant and the sealer. Do not put it in dirty fluid. fluid, because a lot of times that'll clog things up, and of course it won't work as well because it's dirty fluid, and the friction of the dirt will keep the sealer from sealing anything. Naveem says, Scotty, 2016 Infiniti Q50, I want to trade to a manual Accord 2-liter turbo. Good decision? I would definitely. If you can get kind of an even trade or something, go right ahead. The Hondas are better made in the long run. The Infinitis are fine cars to drive. They're fast, they're zippy, they're fancy Nissans. As they age, they become endless money pits. The engines wear out. The transmissions wear out. They have all kinds of problems with catalytic converters going bad. Honda doesn't really have those problems. That would be a smart move if I were you. You never want to keep an Infiniti too long because they do become money pits as they get older. John Sperry says, what do you think of Tesla cars? Would the need to jumpstart one be something that needs to be planned for, especially since they're more affected by cold temperature? Now, when you have a regular gasoline car and your battery's dead, you jump that battery, then that sends electricity to the starter that starts the engine, and then it runs on its own off the gasoline engine, which has an alternator, which generates electricity to run the car and recharge the battery. All right, a Tesla electric car is none of those things. If the battery's flat and you, in quote, jump-started it, as soon as you took the cables off of the jumper, it would die because it doesn't generate electricity. It just uses electricity. Now, it regenerates electricity when you go down the road and you hit the brakes. That regenerates electricity. If your car doesn't have electricity and you jumped it, then it would just die as soon as you took the cables off. They already have plans, and some areas have small amounts of them, that there are rescue services, and they will either have a giant battery in their pickup rescue trucks or a generator. And let's say it's a generator. They'll start the generator up, they'll hook the Tesla up, and they'll recharge it for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then they'll say, okay, you got 25 miles of range now. There's a charging station within this. All that stuff you can test with the computers on Tesla. It'll show you where the nearest charging station is. And if they said it's this many miles away, they would just have to charge it a little bit over than that so you could drive it there. But once they're out of power, you can't jump start them because once you took the jump starter off, they would just stop running. L&M says German cars. If you could only buy a German car built in the last 10 years, what would it be? I'll tell you what again. I mean, I never would, but if I had to, I would buy mid-sized diesel, but it would have to be made in Germany. I would not want made anywhere else. I've seen the ones made in Alabama have problems. Other places in the world have problems. The ones made in Germany are the best. I would get a diesel made in Germany because they're so much less complex than the gasoline versions of Mercedes. As they get aged, those engines are hellacious to work on, all these plastic parts. They just break and blah, blah, blah. Well, they can't put as many plastic parts on a diesel engine because they have so much pressure. They got to make most of the stuff still out of metal. Victor Fernandez says, hi from Norton, Massachusetts. Well, my son Riley lives there. I want to buy a pickup truck. Should I go F-150 or Toyota Tundra with high miles? The Tundras can run forever. And if I bought a Tundra, I would not buy a new one. I would definitely get a used one because I only like them with the V8 engines in them. And they can go a long time. I've seen them with 500,000 miles and they can still pull 15,000 pounds. They're really well-made vehicles. The F-150s are decent trucks too. You know? I mean, they're not going to last quite as long as a Tundra, but you can generally get them a lot cheaper. If you could find a medium mileage F-150, it'd be a decent truck. But the Tundras just last longer than any of them, and they have less maintenance. They break down less. I would probably get a Tundra with high mileage. King Kang says, Scotty, my car is all-wheel drive. It started humming in the rear. I feel a slight vibration. I changed all the wheel bearings. The noise remains. I think it's something to do with the drive shaft. All right, well, here's the thing. You got to pinpoint the noise. It only makes noise when you're driving, not if you jack it up in the air, right? So watch my video, Finding the Source of Car Noises, Scotty. Watch that. We got machines. You can buy one for as little as $89 on Amazon. Mine comes with 6 different clips. You put them in different areas. You have headphones, and then the receiving unit, you click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when the noise is the loudest, you know that's where the area it's coming from. More often, if it's humming, you change the wheel bearings. But you got an all-wheel drive, a differential in the back. Pray it's not the differential humming, because they're very expensive to rebuild. Unfortunately, you change the bearings, it usually is, especially if you're higher mileage. That's real simple to figure out. You just clip one of the clamps right on the differential when you're driving. If you hear it, you'll know, okay, it's the differential that's humming. And very few people know how to rebuild them these days. They're very expensive to buy new. You might try a little bit heavier oil, see if that helps. Like if you got 85, 90, maybe put a 140 gearbox oil in it and see if it helps the noise. Either way, it means that it's starting to wear inside, and you got to think, do I want to fix it? Do I want to get rid of the vehicle? Or do I want to just have a new differential put on? So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.